Okay, today we will talk about interpretation. Most of the freshers, when they come and they were asking a lot of questions, how the interpretation job works, how the payment is done, what requirements are there, and what are some of the important steps that we have to take in order to become an interpreter. Today I will be covering some of the most important sections and requirements that are needed to become an interpreter, particularly medical interpreter, and work online from home. The first thing is understanding interpretation services, how it works. Let me give you an overview, some of the information about it. So basically, when there are two people, they speak two different languages. So there is a need for an interpreter who can interpret between them. We have already discussed about the difference between interpreter and translator. So interpreter is just translate. It's not a translating. It is just communicating between two people. One person doesn't understand the other's language, and we are there to help them. So interpretation involves facilitating communication between the speakers of different languages. And when it comes to the English speaking clients, we call them clients simply. The English speaking people, whether they're doctors, engineer, whoever is working there, and they need our assistance as an interpreter, we call them the client. And there is another person who is limited English proficient, we call them LP. So these are the individuals, they do not understand each other. As an interpreter, we go and help them to understand each other. For example, there is a doctor and there is a patient. Doctor speaks English, but the patient doesn't. In this case, there is a need for interpreter. The interpreter comes and interprets the words between these two parties, and it facilitates communication. Now, how the process works. Okay, the process works in many ways. Some of the organizations have they use the application. For example, they use Google. Some of them are using application of for example, they're using Zoom. Some of them are having some other parts types of applications. But some of the companies they have their own platforms. They have their own portals. So how it works, once you pass the test, you are finally given the platform and you're given the credentials like the email address will be registered with a password. You will go inside there. So once you go online, so you will be receiving calls. There are two types of calls most often we receive. They are the audio calls, we call them OPI, over the phone interpreters. So these are kind of OPI calls, we call them audio calls. And the second part, second type of the calls are the video calls. We call them VRI, which stands for video remote interpretation. So actually, receiving calls, interpreters receive call through a designated, through a specific platform that is provided by the company. Now, testing and certification is also part of this in order to become a certified interpreter, to be able to handle calls, particularly in medical. So you have to pass some of the required tests. These tests include the medical test. You have to have the terms. It's about the HIPAA, which is for to understand what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and to understand the PHI, which is uh, the health information of every individual, and interpreters gain access to the platform to provide the services after they pass those tests and after they are certified. The rules of interpretation is quite important. So understanding these two terms are really important, as before mentioned, the client and also understanding who is LAP. So client simply we call them the English speaking individual, and they need our assistance to understand the LAP. And LAP is also a person who is limited in English or who doesn't understand English, but we are there to help them, to engage them into conversation and to facilitate the communication between these two parties. The interpreter's rule, I'm just giving short information here. Overall, there are a lot of rules and responsibilities, rights and responsibilities of the interpreters. So one of the main things for the interpreters is bridging communication gaps. So interpreter is someone who is breaking the barriers they are available. So the interpreter acts as a middleman, translating the spoken words in real time. In real time means like on the spot, this is a consecutive interpretation between the client and the LP. Also, it's important for an interpreter to provide clarity. Interpreters must convey the message accurately, effectively, maintaining the original intent and meaning. So, as an interpreter, you cannot add anything, you cannot omit anything, you cannot paraphrase anything. So, whatever is said, you have to say that same to the person that you're interpreting for. One thing that's important here that beside bridging communication and breaking the language barriers, an interpreter must understand about some other rules as well, like culture awareness, must understand the beliefs, the values, and the language that the interpreter is interpreting must have understanding of the people that they are interpreting. For example, if I'm interpreting for Spanish, I must understand the Spanish. For example, they live, for example, in El Salvador. They live in Spain. I should know their culture. I should know their beliefs and values in order to be a good interpreter. The fifth important thing is that why this is important that the services for the interpretation should be provided. Okay, as mentioned before as well, interpretation services are provided to break barriers. Whenever there is a barrier in communication, there's obstacle. These services facilitate the really important communication in different parts, including in healthcare, if it comes to insurance, legal, if it comes to even social service or customer services. You receive a call from a hospital and the doctor doesn't understand how to speak to the patient. You provide these services. You receive a call from insurance. The client has called the representative at the insurance company, but they don't know how to communicate, and you're someone who goes and communicate between them. You are bridging them. You are engaging them to understand each other. You receive calls from courts, from legal, scenarios are there. You receive calls. You just interpret between the judges, between the lawyers, and between the people who are inside the court. And also for social services, so there is someone who is in need of assistance, but that person cannot understand what the client says, and you're someone helping them. So the main thing, this is important, interpreters break the obstacles, break the barriers for that communication. And promoting understanding is one of the most important aspect of interpretation. So it ensures that any party that they are involved in communication, they should understand each other. And this leads to a better outcome. It leads to a better result. So whenever there is a very clear communication, when there is understanding, so the result will be clear and there will be no ambiguity. In conclusion, we can say that interpretation is quite important in fostering communication and to understand diverse language speakers, and it finally helps to have more accessibility and more inclusivity. So overall, interpretation is playing a very vital role nowadays. So this is the century, like we see a lot of people are migrating from one to another country. Despite that, there are some advancements in technology, but as a human interpreters, we are always in need of human interpreters, and this is how it works. Now, we come to some of the requirements. What are some of the requirements in order to be able to work as an interpreter, as an online remote interpreter, from your workstation, from your house, wherever you are, you work from your home? The first thing that's really important is computer. You must have a computer that's in good condition and good health. At least the computer must have 16 GB RAM, and it should be at least Core i5, and an updated Windows should be there installed. So if you don't have a good computer, so definitely it will be problematic to receive calls because it will be dropped, the internet connection will not be working properly. So it's quite important to have a good internet along with a good computer, because it will help you to receive more calls and be more comfortable. The second thing is that's really important, since it's a remote job, you work from your house, from your office, from your place of convenience. So you must have a good internet connection. At least it should be 10 MB. Remember to check the bandwidth and also to check all the time the timeouts and everything. You can always check your internet connection by going to ooklaspeedtest.com, and you can check it there and find out that how your internet is in upload and also in download. The third thing that's important is you must have a proper workstation, so that should be a workspace where there's no distraction. When it comes to distraction, there should be no noise outside, there should be no one with you, there should be no child outside who is making noise. So it should be a place that you can provide the services quite accurately and without any distractions. So one thing that's always important, your workstation must be HIPAA compliant. It means that you should maintain confidentiality for the PHI, for the health information of the patients or the people. So it's quite important for you to have a proper workstation. It is never allowed to have someone else with you while you're providing services and someone is sitting beside you or sleeping beside you. So it's quite important. Everybody should know that once if it is found out that someone is with you at your workstation, so it will have some consequences, or maybe immediate termination might be there. So be careful about it and never let anyone to be with you in your workstation. The next requirement is the headset. A high quality noise cancelling headset is always important to provide a very clear communication. So remember, as you can see in this picture as well, so you should have a proper one, so not the one in the picture you can see, like we have the plug is like USB shape, so it should be provided. This kind of, I think this is Logitech. So Logitech is one of the examples. You may find some more examples as well in the and you can order or purchase it. So it will have some good things. Whenever you want to mute, you have an option it shows you, so it's quite comfortable. Maybe there are some other examples as well, but personally I use Logitech. The payment structure is one of the most asked questions by the interpreters, by the freshers. How the interpreters are paid. Okay, well, the payment is based most of the times based on minutes. Before, like, still we have some companies in the market, they provide like hours payments, like per hour they pay, whether you receive a call or not. So they will pay you for hours. But most of the companies are paying you in minutes, like you hit 200 300 minutes and they pay you for a minute, and they will provide you this, the rates. It depends like what company, what language you work for, at what time. So they see that how important this language is, and how is the call flow for that. So based on many factors, they will provide you a rate that you will be paid this rate of dollars for a minute of active interpretation. So the rates or something you can discuss it with a company. So they can ask you to work with them uh, like minute based, so you work for minutes and then they pay you for the minutes. Or some of the companies, they ask you to work with them on shift, like you work per hour they pay you, and that's all. So you can discuss it with the company and see what the company provides. Is it like hour base or is it minute base? Language proficiency is one of the most important factor and most important requirement for interpreters, because if you don't know the language, it will be difficult. Understanding your own language is always important. Along with that, you must know about the culture, the beliefs and values of your people, or the people who you will be interpreting for. The second thing is important, that you must have at least a C1 or C2 level of English. You must understand what the English speaking person says, and you can convey the message appropriately, because if your English is not good enough, so it will be problematic for you to understand the clients. So first of all, you must understand what the client asks, what the client says, and then you can convey that. Otherwise it will be problematic for you when you will not be able to effectively interpret between the parties, which are the client and the LP. The target language is also important. The target language is the language that you will be interpreting for English. So beside English, as an interpreter, you must have good understanding of your language. You must understand what vocabulary is used. There are, like, we have formal vocabulary. Sometimes we use like general vocabulary. You must understand that what terminology should be used at what time, because if there is a formal situation and you are using informal words, that's not good. You must understand what vocabulary, what words should you use at what time. You must have a cultural context, aware what is there, what is important, what is the culture, what's the belief of these people, what is like the values of these people that you are interpreting for. It's quite important, super important. You must learn it, And as an interpreter, you must have understanding, because sometimes it leads to misunderstandings. Some sort of misunderstandings you will not be able to handle. So quite important. You should know at the beginning, and you also should understand the idioms, the expressions. Every language has different idioms, different expressions. You must understand that. What does it mean? So if someone says an idiom in English, and you cannot say that back in English, in the target language. Or someone says something as an idiom, as expression in the target language, and you cannot interpret it into English. So it's quite important. You must know that what I'm interpreting. So what the client says and what the LP says, you must have understanding of English and also the target language. And the last thing is, it's important for proficiency. So high proficiency in both languages, whether it's English or the target language, or you are interpreting for 3 or 4 languages. So if you understand the languages more, so it minimizes misunderstandings and ensures accurate interpretation. Usually I cannot blame, like, if you don't know the language, like for C2 level, you will be not accurate. Actually, there are many reasons for not being accurate. One of the reasons is that you don't understand the language properly, or you're not advanced enough. The second thing is you're not taking note. Third thing is you're not paying attention. These are important. The fourth main reason is that you're not accurate for interpretation, is like you don't know the words, the terms, to use them properly. The fifth one that's important, you're not working. You are not working on yourself. Every day is a new day. Get up, learn something new, and practice them. It's not about like 1 week or 2 weeks you practice and you have trainings, after that you're done. No, no, never. After years and years, every day we have new words, new topics, and you have to keep yourself updated. And definitely these updated materials can help you to interpret properly. So interpretation, to bridge communication gaps, to be effective, it is quite important to provide a good instruction, good communication, and for that, definitely you need to understand the languages that you are interpreting for. Thank you so much for providing your time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it helps you. And yes, still, if you have any question, definitely you can let us know. So we will be making videos like this to you and to explain everything that's important. So you will be receiving calls. That's quite simple at the end if I make it. So you will have interviews. After interviews, you will have some trainings, and during the trainings you must learn the protocol of the company. You definitely learn how to take notes, how to pay attention, how to learn the new terms and terminologies for medical insurance and different types of calls that we receive in audio and video. And after your training is done and the trainer understands that you can qualify now, so there will be a final test, and after that final test is passed, after 2 or 3 days, you will be receiving the result. If you pass, so they will provide you platform. That platform, you will be installing that on your computer, and yeah, definitely these requirements should be there. And once that's installed, so there will be a test call. Usually there is a test call. The call comes from the company side and you will be answering that. So there will be someone sitting and will be checking you, so how you use the protocol, how you take notes, and how you behave with a client. So once they see that you are now capable, you have the potential to take calls, they will give you calls and you will be serving those calls. Okay, in return of those calls that you are serving, you will be paid per hour or per minute. So as I mentioned before, and after a month or 15 days, companies differ from one to other, so they will pay you. So there will be payment methods, whether you want a bank transfer, you want other like PayPal, you need Wise, okay, whatever that is, you can discuss it with the company. So overall, I give you information that how interpretation job works. So it doesn't mean that is something new. If you know one language, 2 languages, and English, you can definitely be an interpreter, but you will have to work a lot, really a lot. You have to work a lot, and yeah, that's all. Beside that, you must work on protocol, note taking, paying attention how to do it, and it's always important to watch videos like this to be a better interpreter and finally be a good interpreter. Thank you so much.